Welcome to my channel, unless you're new here. And just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And tonight we are going to talk about candy corn. And I have wanted this for like 2 years. And God, man, it was hard to find, hard to get. Maybe they did a reprinting of it or something, but finally I managed to get it for like 16 bucks. It was always so expensive everywhere, but I got it brand new. Candy corn. Now, Candy Corn was released in 2019. It was directed by Josh Hasty and written by Josh Hasty, and it stars Courtney Gaines, who was Malachi in Children of the Corn, and Pancho and PJ Souls, who was in the original Halloween, and most notoriously as that, I hated her so badly. What was her name? Norma in Carrie, the one with the hat all the time. Oh God, I wanted to beat her to. And Tony Todd is in this as well, playing Bishop Gates. So, we got some classic horror people in this movie who do very well. This movie opens up with 4 assholes on Halloween Eve who are going to go. They found out there's this guy that they pick on named Jacob, and he is a full-grown adult male with pretty probably a 5 or 6 on the functional scale of autism, maybe 6.5. Or maybe 7, yeah, because there's a scale. The higher you score, the more you are closer to Asperger's. The lower you score is the less functional you are. So he's like about 7. But they've been picking on him like every year. They prank him, they beat him, they bully him, stuff like that. So we're introduced to these 4 assholes who are plotting it. Mike, Steve, his girlfriend Carol, and their friend Bobby. And they found out that he's been given a job by Dee, Dr. Death. Dr. Death is played by Pancho. He's a midget, small person. Very, very good in this movie. Wonderful in this movie. And so he's been given a job at this carnival. So we see Jacob riding. Their plan is that when they catch him at work out by the trailers behind the carnival, they're going to, push him around, bully him, strip him and scare him and make him run down the road in his underwear or naked or something like that. Fucking assholes. But that's what they're going to do. So we see Jacob leave his house, and he goes riding his bike barefoot, going to the carnival. He goes to the carnival, shows up, and they're there, and then the attack happens. Now the attack had a 5th member. Carol didn't participate. She sat over there, in a corner going, doesn't matter when you're involved. It doesn't matter. You can sit over there and act squeamish all you want to, but you're still involved because you're there and you knew about it and you didn't stop it. Right. So the guy that ran the cafe or diner, where they were or was an employee there, he had made them tell him what was going on because he wanted to be part of it. So his name was Gus, and he's there too. Well, unfortunately, I guess Dr. Death had, in just the short time, how did they meet? I don't know. I think we'll know that at the end, though. So obviously, Dr. Death had instilled a little bit already into him because when they did start pushing him around and attack, he pushed back. That's all he did. He didn't like hit them or nothing. He just pushed Mike back. And that, in their minds, deserved a beating so bad that he was literally killed. They killed this boy. They didn't know it, but they killed him. They took off. Dr. Death found him, brought him into the trailer. They realized he was dead. Dr. Death got out this nice little witchy box and took out some stuff, a mask and a Necronomicon type book, and worked his magic, did a ritual, and brought him back. Of course, now he's obviously a vengeance demon, right? So he's going to be, turned loose. Now, Carol, she goes to the sheriff, Courtney Gaines, Malachi from Children of the Court. She goes and tells Marcy, PJ Souls, from Carrie. She tells her about it. The sheriff comes in. She tells him that, this is what happened. I think they may have hurt him. Basically telling on herself. So the sheriff knows about it. The sheriff goes out there to see Dr. Death. And you can tell right off the bat that Dr. Death don't like cops, don't like this city, don't like people, outside the carnival community. So he tells him that his punks from town sure did tear him up, sure did give him a good beating, but he's fine and he's okay. So you're like, okay, all right. We know that ain't true, right? So the sheriff goes back, and it turns out that Mike guy, the leader of this shit, is the sheriff's son. So the sheriff, because the sheriff is a really nice guy, the sheriff rips a new one from his son Mike, but basically spreads that he went and checked it out and that Jacob's all right. So we're introduced. That actually leads back. I skipped it. How we got introduced was to the sheriff. Was he was riding down the road and through this residential neighborhood, and Marcy is talking to him on the radio, and he's like, "Yeah, I've been driving down here. I know Miss So and So called, but I don't see nobody engaging in lewd behavior." And then all of a sudden he sees Jacob standing naked behind a bush by this house. And he gets out, can't find him. And then that's when he went back to the station and Carol was there, so I filled in that for you. Now that all this has happened, he thinks that everything's fine. He even goes out to Jacob's house to check on him, but nobody answers. But he had talked to Dr. Death. Dr. Death said that Jacob was fine, so everything's okay. Carol's at home, and she's having a nap when Mike tries to scare her, and he comes in. Later on, Mike confronts Carol at the store about ratting them out and how much trouble he got in from his dad. Gus has come in to work. And Gus, this is the first kill. So Gus takes over from, or he comes into work. The guy's still there. He goes into the bathroom where he begins to play with himself. And he gets interrupted when he hears a noise. He comes out and there is this creature. There's Jacob in this horrible mask, who basically rips his heart out, up against the wall, pulls his heart out, and then stuffs his mouth with candy corn. So the sheriff and all, they have to come find the body. It traumatized that poor boy. the other one that worked there. It traumatized him because he's the one that went in there and found that mess. And so now the sheriff starts thinking, what, it's not connected, but whatever. Cheryl shows up at Steve's work. He works at the theater. She tells him about Mike. Sam and the deputy, they're over there looking at Gus's body. Chet, that was the other guy that was working. He's pretty traumatized by what it happened, but he didn't see anything. He didn't see who did it, because actually I think he was like almost asleep or something, because you heard when Jacob went out the door, the chime, ding ding, and he looked up, but I think he was like taking a nap or something, so he didn't see Jacob come and go. So Steve and Carol and all of them are kind of scared now when, because it spreads around. But the sheriff reassures them that it's, that Gus was into some bad stuff, maybe knew some bad people, but everything was fine. Carol and Steve talk to Mike and Bobby about their fears. Mike says that there's nothing to fear because his daddy said so. And they all leave, leaving Bobby alone in Bobby's apartment building. I think, to me, this was like the best kill in the movie, because Bobby, sees the jack-o'-lantern full of candy corn, which is always a sign that Jacob's around. And Jacob comes out of fucking nowhere, too. It scares the hell out of me while he's walking down the hall. He throws him up against the wall, and then starting at the back of his neck, he, digs in and rips his entire spine out. And it wasn't quick. It was... The guy who played Bobby did it very well. That was some painful looking shit as the stuff got going. You know what I mean? First you got to break the skin, get in there, get a hold of it, rip it out. It was very long. It was it was not a quick kill scene. Very brutal, very nasty. That was a good kill scene. I will say that Bobby's death scene was pretty good. So now poor Bobby, the only one of the whole fucking bunch that was cute too, so you can imagine what I thought about that. He's dead. The sheriff has to come and see that. They go back to talk to Dr. Death, kind of wondering if he had something to do with it. Deputy Conrad shows up to tell them about Bobby being killed, which immediately clears Dr. Death, because they've been talking to Dr. Death while Bobby was killed. So he's like, well, that gets me off the hook. I don't need an alibi for that. So we kind of see Carol being stalked a little bit. We, of course, know that it's Jacob. Steve and Carol are at his job, the theater, and they're like watching a movie and going to make out in the empty theater, while they watch a movie. When all the stuff, they get spooked, Steve goes to the bathroom or something like that. Carol's up there on the stage and nothing but her underwear. When she sees Steve coming, and when he walks, he's like his brain has been removed through his ears or some shit like that. It's really grotesque. And he's still walking though. He walks up to her and drops dead. She screams, starts running. Jacob grabs a hold of her and just he rips her tongue completely out. Not a piece of your tongue, but the entire thing out, and then crushes her when he steps on her. So he took care of them. It's like a double kill. So Sam confronts his son Mike about it and ends up, telling him to stay inside, but he doesn't tell Mike about Bobby and Carol and Steve all being dead. So they go back to Jacob's house and search it, him and a deputy, where they find a corpse underneath Jacob's mother's bed. It's obviously Jacob's mom. But this isn't anything recent. You know what I'm saying? This is like a 2-year-old body here. So they don't think that Jason had anything to do with her death. She probably just died and he don't know what to do. So they don't touch that subject anymore either. So obviously they don't suspect him of that. Well, the sheriff said they don't suspect him of that. So right when Jacob had ripped her tongue out, he sort of collapsed like he was out of steam. And you could hear like Dee Dee, Dr. Death, I call him Dee Dee in my notes. He like wrote, or he like said, "No, we're not done yet. You can't run out of steam now." So he actually gets Bishop Gates, who we've seen a few times, like covering for all of this as well, but not happily, And so something's going on with this carnival. So him, he goes to Bishop Gates and he's like, "We need more blood to keep Jason going. We need fresh. We need to like re-ritualize him." So what was it? Sheriff Sam had finally called Mike after all of this and told him about his three friends being dead. Mike had of course freaked out. And it was like, tough guy, big ass, going to go to the carnival and whip their ass. Yeah, right. So Sam shows up back home and Dr. Death is there. Sam like draws his gun, gets all badass, stuff like that, not knowing that Bishop's behind him. And it's a pretty cool monologue between them, and about outcasts and the way townspeople treat outcasts. And Bishop knocks him out and then leaves, and then Dr. Death starts doing something that sounds like cutting somebody up, and he goes back to the carnival, obviously to re-energize, I guess is the way you would put it, re-energize Jacob. And Mike goes to the carnival, but Jacob isn't ready yet. That's what, because Bishop comes in and says, "That guy Mike's here, trying to start trouble." And he's like, "Y'all keep him busy because Jason's not ready yet. I'm still working on it." I mean, Jacob's not ready yet. So he's still in the middle of doing a ritual. And I guess when they do become ready, the sheriff, because Mike's like in the middle of the carnival where the big show happens. All the lights come back on, and here comes the sheriff's car, and Mike turns around because they had knocked him out. The strong man had knocked him out, put him in there, and they were doing some silly show in front of him. When he woke up, they finally let him go, and when he went walking down the boulevard, the main thoroughfare of the carnival, the lights all came back on, and here came the sheriff's car with the sheriff's head as the ornament on the hood, with his eyes gone and the teeth ripped out and stuff. It was. So Mike starts freaking out because that's his dad's head on the ornament as the ornament on the car. And that's when Jacob comes walking out and they have the final face-off, which really doesn't take too long, as you can imagine. He walks up to him, and I think Mike tries one pathetic hit at him or something, but Jacob grabs a hold of him and rips both of his arms off at the shoulder. And Mike like falls down on his knees, and his arms are gone from the shoulder, so blood is like, spewing both ways. And then he chokes him to death with candy corn. And starts pulling his teeth out. Now we see, it cuts to a scene where we see the carnival has moved and it's now in Wisconsin. And we see Dr. Death, or we see this sort of, you know what Outcast looks like. I'm one. You look like a skate punk, metalhead, headbanger, punk rocker, just the outcasts. And you see a girl, obviously like a skater girl or a punk girl, she's obviously an outcast. And she's talking to him about this necklace of teeth. And Dr. Death is like, yes, they are real teeth. And she's like, what do? Just go pull someone's teeth out? And he's like, no, you don't understand. Behind every item that I sell here in my store, there's a story behind it, just like there's a story behind that necklace. And then he gives her this little speech about broken, damaged, and outcast people. And that as long as there were broken and damaged outcast people out there, that him and his carnival would be showing up to take care of them. So you kind of like got a little explanation there, what they were doing in this town with Jacob, how they met Jacob. Obviously there's magics at work here. So, that they would always be there to take care of the outcasts and to stop them from being abused. And she's like, okay. And then we see Jacob backstage in the trailer eating candy corn out of that jack-o'-lantern thing. And that's where the movie ends. So I loved it. I knew I would, which is why I wanted it. I think seeing Tony Todd and Courtney Gaines and PJ Souls was really cool. They were good in their roles. The acting was perfectly great. I never saw one flub in this movie. Everything was acted very well, executed very well. I liked the backstory and the thought of this magic carnival that goes around to towns and picks up and picks out and takes up for the outcasts. And I guess if a bullied outcast is what would magically call that carnival to that area, there's a lot of imagination fuel, which is what any good world building and mythology building is supposed to do. It's supposed to give you food for thought, imagination fuel to try to fill in the blanks, who were these people? Because Dr. Death had said, when Bishop said some stuff that made you think they've all been alive for a very long time. And Dr. Death even said in one of their little discussions that he can't die. He could never die. So, yeah, what's behind these carnival workers? What is this carnival? What are they doing out there? You could definitely make a franchise out of this. Especially with that kind of setup. You're a traveling carnival that goes to places where abused outcasts need a little help. Especially of the revenge kind. So I really like this movie. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Which means I gave it an 8 on International Movie Database, because I always give a little extra to make up for the haters who hate horror so much. So yes, love you, miss you, bye. I will see you in the next one. That's Candy Corn from 2020. 2019. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Always remember, never forget, you're a very special person. Even if you don't belong to a traveling magic carnival. that takes care and revenge for abused outcasts. Bye-bye.